Just a quick video using my small Biochar retort. I've had about 4 burns today. First burn was good, second burn I left it unattended, and what happened is the kind of wood just burnt down and needed a little bit of maintaining just to keep it roaring away, and obviously wasn't enough heat there to kind of off-gas the wood, the feedstock in the inner drum. What I've noticed here, I'm using just dry, kiln-dried, plain bore round softwood. This is just offcuts of woodwork, sort of joinery timber. But what I've noticed is the 4-inch flue doesn't have the volume to actually well, I don't know how to word it really. Yeah, it's just choking the fire. There just isn't enough flow rate through that 4-inch piece of spiral ducting. So what I've done is I've cracked the lid over to one side. It's still jetting out the top. Don't know if that's going to show up. Yeah. So what was happening? It was this. It's interesting this burn, because I'm using really dry timber, softwood, so it's really fast burning, quite hot burning timber. Doing this at night is quite interesting because you can actually see the fire working its way down the drum by the orange glow on the side of the drum. So I set this up, put a bit of shredded newspaper on top, a little bit of mats on top, lit it, let the fire get underway so some of the softwood was burning, but because they were very small pieces, it took hold quite fast. I put the lid on with the flue, and you could just watch the orange glow on the side of the drum, and it was working its way down fairly quickly. And even after about 10-15 minutes you could see flame at the bottom, and it was already pulsing as the internal load of softwood was off-gassing, and then it was boom, 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 boom as it was starting to catch, and you could see glowing embers flicking out from around the base of the thing. So yeah, it's working really well, but there is that issue with the flue not being quite large enough diameter. So what I was doing is I've just slid it over to one side, and it's a bit of a sort of kind of fine line between moving it over too much and having lots of smoke, and then just cracking it enough so it's got a bit of additional area for the flame to actually draw up through. But what was quite nice, and my phone was just out of battery, I just charged it up, but there were some really nice vortexes as it was curving round, because the internal flue's got a secondary air inlet in there, and that was actually drawing the fire over. So even though it's really roaring away, it was doubling back on itself. So it's interesting, this. There's a lot of science and a lot of physics going on, a lot of chemistry, and a lot of things I don't quite understand, but it's too small for an allotment. You need more capacity. Something like this, if you can have regular burns, it's probably quite nice just to sort of set it up and get a delivery of wood chip, do some wheelbarrowing around, keep your eye on it so you can do other things. But the problem is it's quite fascinating, and what is interesting about this, you load it up, you set the fire off, you start the fire, you can see that vortex. It's fascinating, isn't it? But it was like a bit like a pulse jet. It was like the old World War II doodle bugs. It was when it was starting to burn, and then you could watch the top of the flue. It doesn't like that because the flame isn't continuous. It was pulsing. It was a jet of flame, and then smoke, then a jet of flame, then smoke. Yeah, but yeah, it's intriguing, this thing, and I'm tempted to basically same as this, just with a full-size drum, so it's sort of twice the size, but the volume goes up by the sort of cube, so the volume of charcoal you get at the end would be sort of 8 times what you get from this one. But yeah, if you're thinking about setting up a retort, this is the way to go. I think there's so much you can learn from doing this, and it sort of teaches you about what woods to use and feedstocks and how much kind of timber to actually fuel the burn. As I said, because you load this up beforehand, what is quite interesting is as the fire dies down and then you've got a really nice bed of coals at the bottom, because there's that sort of residual heat in that drum inside, that's pumping out wood gas, and that wood gas it's like a kind of perpetual motion in a way. It hasn't got a big flame to heat it up, but it's got enough potential energy in that wood gas to keep it fueled, so it's like a kind of a balancing act. And that's really quite interesting, because what I noticed, the fire burns down quite fast. You sort of think, hang on a minute, there's only a small amount, there's only an inch and a half all round, just with a sort of bucket load of offcuts of sort of 15mm by 10mm battling. So the kind of wood that if you just had it on an open fire would burn away in no time. But because you've got that gas, the wood gas is actually fueling the fire, and it's the oxygen that's being drawn through from the vents in the base that's keeping that fire going. And in a way it's almost like the wood around the outside is just kind of wicking a little bit of flame, just enough to ignite the main kind of volume of the fire. But as you can see, that where it's sort of jetting and had that vortex around, it's dying down. It's pretty fierce down there, but it's nowhere near as fierce as it was. So it gives you an indication that the bulk of that wood gas has kind of come off as it's worked its way down. And you can also see the glowing on the side of the drum, even though it's really hot and it's kind of a bit too hot to stand this close to it. You can see that orange glow isn't anywhere as near as fierce as it was. It reminded me of one of those electric flame effect fires that in the sort of 1970s with the little fans that went round, because you could actually see the sort of silhouette of the burning coals on the outside of the drum. It was almost like the drum was transparent, it was so hot. But yeah, definitely really go. I'll share the links for the plans for this. I mean, it's nothing I've invented myself. It's only kind of based on what's already on the internet. But you can see, if it focuses, yeah, there's a jet of wood gas around the base. That's that orange glow, and it's just the coals that are just giving it enough heat just to ignite. So that wood gas is igniting on its own, because once it's exposed to oxygen, it's just flaring out. What I have done differently, I've got some old fire bricks from a storage heater, and I've got those around 2 of the sides. So I've made it almost like a kind of little oven. I won't show if you'll be able to see. You can just see the reflections on the drum there. I'll just get a light as well, so you can see. I mean, this isn't really, it's pretty improvised. So I've got just these are just house bricks on top, and then I've got a couple of courses of bricks, and these are going to be pretty hot. Yeah, you can see them steaming away. And actually, yeah, they're hot, but they're not unbearably hot. Yeah, that one's, yeah, that's really radiating out the heat there, and you can see on the other side of on the drum there, it's glowing orange, and this is just the other air inlet. What I've done here, I've just got a stick there that's close to it, and it's just charring the end of that timber. But what I might do, because this is London, the allotment's in London, so you've got access to loads of London clay, I might make a kind of 3-sided sort of clay oven with the engineering bricks inside, so you can still drag the whole setup out away from it, but you've got that volume of yeah, it's really hot. Wow. You can actually see it already glowing orange there, like that. and the yeah, the bricks on top are just steaming. Yeah, so it's interesting. Definitely go for it if you're kind of umming and ahhing. And with these things, there's always a better kind of biochar retort set up. So it's a case of just sort of trying out what works for you and what sort of size of growing space you've got. So you can see that flame is just pretty pathetic now. It's nowhere near as fierce as it was. It's just the residue, the last residue of wood gas just being off-gassed. And you notice you can just, the distance I'm away from this, it's not exactly unbearable. It's warm, it's just like being too close to a fireplace, but before, because the drum was radiating out gobs of heat, it was too hot. And one thing I've noticed, if you get a old bit of stick or something like that, hold it on the side of the drum and it gives you an indication. If it sort of ignites after about 5 seconds, it just gives you a rough indication of how hot the thing is. Yeah, no, it's actually focusing on the embers in there now. So in a way you could probably walk away from this now. That would just burn down. Yeah, so I'd say this was about 95% successful this time. I've had 5 burns, 4 burns were, 3 burns were good. 1 burn was a bit rubbish because I left it, and this burn's really the best of the bunch. But that is basically because the softwood is really dry. It makes a massive difference because you're not just spending lots of heat just to kind of evaporate lots of moisture and fill up the bottom of the drum with water. What is quite nice as well is I've got a hole punch and a sheet metal punch, and I just punch the holes in the base. It is a very fine line between how much air you've got, the size of the flue, the size of the drum, and there's a bit of sort of trial and error with these things. What I did is I made this hole, that's about 60mm. I just used a hole saw for that one because I thought it's quite nice to be able to sort of get a bamboo cane or something and stick it in there and rake it around, and because really you want a uniform burn all around the drum as the wood falls down. So if you haven't got those holes, if there's a bit where it's sort of jammed up, it's a bit bigger, because these are all offcuts that are all slightly different sizes. That just gives you a chance to sort of lever it around, and then the wood tends to drop through. What I have noticed though, with the fire bricks around there, I was a bit concerned about having fire bricks there and I wouldn't be able to actually do anything with these holes, but because it's just that much more heat, it's just burning more efficiently, and the wood is just dropping down on its own. You don't kind of have to rake around in the embers as much. But I think with the 3 sides on here, and it might be an idea to get a piece of steel plate or something like that, just to lean it on, just so it reflects some of the heat off from it. Yeah, you can see, you can hear it. It's not roaring anymore at all. It's just a waft of gas. It's not. I mean, before it was. Yeah, that flue wasn't big enough to actually deal with that amount of flame that was coming out of the thing. So this is quite well behaved. Yeah, you can get right down there. Look, you see. So the bit where the flame is coming out, that's the bottom of the inner drum. I'm standing it on a bit of couple of bits of short pieces of Dexian sort of angle iron. It raises it up about 40mm, so it just keeps it clear at the base, just where the gas is coming out from the gap. So this was a sort of swaged over the ends of the drum, and I've just cut it round with a jigsaw. So where the fire is coming out, that is like the saw curve from the jigsaw. So I think it's just a case of, I'll take the lid off, have a look at it, and then just jet it down with kind of douse it with some water. I think that